First from our studios in Washington, we have Ray Locker, National Security Editor of USA Today, and Raymond Vickery, former Assistant Secretary of Commerce of the USA. Thank you very much, Ray and Raymond Vickery, for joining us. From Pakistan, we have from Islamabad, Syed Tariq Pirzada, Strategic Affairs Analyst, and Defense Analyst Brigadier Javed Hussain from Karachi. Thank you for coming in. G. Partsadi, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan. K.C. Singh, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. General G.D. Bakshi, editor of the Indian Military Review. And Maruf Raza, our Strategic Affairs Analyst. We've got a big panel, but we also have a lot of time, gentlemen. So we are going to go into this issue in quite some detail. Now, the first point is to our guests in Washington, Ray Locker and Raymond Vickery. First of all, we are very concerned now in India with what is happening there, not just because there are Indians who are trapped, but because of the growing ambitions, reach, and potential of groups such as this to spread terror across boundaries. My question to our American guests is this, that, when George Bush and Tony Blair, they said on April 8, 2003, they said, we are going to build a great nation in Iraq. We are going to help the Iraqi people build a nation that is whole, free, at peace with itself and its neighbors. We will do everything for Iraq, etc., etc. And today, Barack Obama says, sorry, we can do nothing anymore. You go defend yourself. I mean, this problem of the ISIS is essentially an American creation. You allow it to proliferate. And now you say we are going to wash our hands off the problem. How fair is that, Mr. Vickery and Mr. Locker, to you there in Washington first?
Well, maybe I'll go first. First of all, we didn't create ISIS. India and the United States have a great deal in common, a great common interest in terms of preventing and inhibiting Islamic militancy across the globe. And I know that we're working closely on it. The United States has spent $1.3 trillion, about 5,000 lives, and $25 billion in regard to the army of Iraq. So we've made the contribution, and we didn't abandon Iraq. Iraq government asked us to leave in 2011, and we complied with that.
Sir,
now the question is, what do you do?
Sir, isn't it a fact?
The question is, what do you do?
No, sir, isn't it a fact that the whole Sunni-Shia schism in Iraq only intensified since the American occupation? Isn't it a fact that the Al-Qaeda found an excuse to intervene in Iraq and launch operations there against the Americans since you left the country in a mess? Why are you hesitating to act now? You must take some responsibility for the mess you've created. Okay, I think Ray also wants to come in. Go ahead.
Oh, I think we are taking responsibility. I mean, we're sending special forces there now. The president on Friday said we're stepping up our use of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft, which are often drones or other kind of, aerial intelligence things. That's going to help us identify targets that will then be taken out by airstrikes. President didn't specifically say that on Friday, but that's where that's going.
So that is
we're
too little,
work
too
hand
late.
in hand with the Iraqi government to try to stop it.
That's too little,
Perhaps,
too late.
but it's better than nothing.
No, but you didn't say better than nothing when you entered Iraq. You didn't say whether you were warned about ISIS 5 months ago. What we want to know today is that both America and Britain were warned about ISIS and their increasing reach within Iraq and Syria. And yet your government did nothing, took no corrective action following your withdrawal from Iraq in 2011. I'm sorry, Ray, if I'm being direct, but that's exactly the fact here. You knew it was happening and you chose to do nothing.
Well, first of all, it wasn't me. I'm a journalist and I don't speak for the U.S. government.
I'm just putting your point of view against mine. Sorry, nothing personal.
Right. Okay. What happened in 2003 is the United States went in there with the British and other allied nations under what we thought was a false, now know as false assumption that there were weapons of mass destruction. We took a country that was very fragile, held together by a dictator, and broke it apart. throwing all these forces to the wind. The United States and the military kept it in check for a long time, but the Iraqis wanted us to leave. We created a democracy there. They voted. They asked us to leave. They denied the United States troops the kind of immunity they need to do their jobs. And so we left. Left it in the hands of the Iraqis to take care of themselves, which they have failed to do.
Mr. Loka, Mr. Vikri, let's open this up now. I'd like to go to G. Parthasarathi next. The question here is, Mr. Parthasarathi, the American point of view today is we did whatever we could have done. We can't do more. And we deposed Saddam Hussein. My counter to that, as I get you in, is the fact remains America may have helped depose a tyrant like Saddam Hussein, who they call was a tyrant. But Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of the ISIS, is no saint. There is an existential threat which Iraq faces, and today they say we have no moral obligation to intervene beyond a few drones here and there. Mr. Parthasarathi, is that acceptable?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the Americans. But I think what is important is for us in India to understand that there are a series of Islamic radical outfits across the world. For example, you're talking of the Islamic state of Iraq and the Levant. Now, that includes Syria. But in Syria, there is yet another al-Nusra front. Now, this Islamic state itself is highly divided. You have radicals, you have Saddam Hussein's remnants. It's a pretty diverse force. You go to Somalia, there's the Al-Shabaab. There's Boko Haram in Nigeria. There's Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen. You have groups in Mali. And the most dangerous, as far as I'm concerned, is the International Islamic Front for Jihad against Jews and Crusaders, founded by Osama bin Laden on February 24th, 1998 in Kandahar. That front included the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, the Harkatul Jihadul Islami, the LET, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, the East Turkestan Front in Xinjiang. This was a federation which came together in Kandahar. They're still there along the Afghan-Pakistan borders. And my view is the Pakistanis have been rather selective in dealing with them, but though they have mounted a very firm military operation, which is selective.
Sure,
it spares the Haqqani group, and it spares the Mullah Omar.
So, but who created the Haqqani group?
And certainly it spares their.
Mr. Parthasarathi, my question is, of course we can question the Pakistanis, you know, for what they have done, or rather should I say not done. But who created the Haqqani group? Did the Americans, did the CIA not create the Haqqani group?
The Haqqani group was created jointly by the CIA and the ISI during the Afghan jihad against the Soviet Union.
Absolutely. And so
the reality.
So that's the point here, isn't it? That's the point here, that the Haqqani group is completely an American creation. He was an American creation. The CIA helped the Haqqani along with the ISI build their capacity. That's the writing on the wall which we are not seeing.
That's there in every book now.
Well, if that's in every book now, who is answerable for the situation? The Americans create the mess and they go away and they say, you know, we can't do anything more about it.
Initially, it was an opportunistic alliance to get rid of the Soviets. The whole thing has backfired. It's spread across the world. I think Hillary Clinton, just a minute, Hillary Clinton has told the Pakistanis, if you grow snakes in your backyard, it's not going to bite only your neighbor.
Sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Parthasarathi, but many of these snakes were fed by the Americans. I mean, you know what American officials have said today?
To start with, yes. Even today, the Al-Nusra Front and the ISIS is funded by Qatar, which is an American ally.
No, so this is the strange situation. Since we are talking about how the Pakistanis are hands in glove with the terrorists, point I make, Americans to the CIA and with the help of Pakistan grouped the Mujahideen in Afghanistan that fought the Soviets. That move backfired, but the Americans never understand, you see. The Americans never understand. Mr. Parthasarathi,
May I add just one thing? The Americans used Wahhabi Islam to finish off the Soviets. the extremist Salafist element not only turned against them, but have got into a Shia-Sunni conflict across the Islamic world.
And there is a thesis to saying today that whether it is India, Afghanistan, and dare say Brigadier Javed Hussain, let's get you in, or even the Pakistanis who will pay the price for American strategic opportunism in this case.
You see,
yes, Brigadier Hussain, that is to you.
You see, when the Americans went into Iraq, they were able to achieve the objective set for the invasion. They destroyed the Iraqi army, raised a new army, handed over the security of the country to this new army, established some sort of a democratic system, and put politicians in various places. That army raised by the Americans has collapsed. This is precisely what is going to happen in Afghanistan. It was a similar objective. Destroy the Taliban, they were unable to destroy them. The Taliban escaped when the Americans went in, to emerge a few months later as a formidable guerrilla group. They are now leaving Afghanistan, after handing over the security to the Afghan National Army. And after the departure of the Americans, there is going to be a civil war. The Taliban are not going to give in. This army will collapse. So you see the similarity between Afghanistan and Iraq. You come to Pakistan, we have the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan operating not only in FATA. FATA happens to be the hub, but they have sleeper cells in almost all the urban areas of Pakistan. The moment of truth has arrived. The Pakistan army has gone into North Waziristan. The ground offensive is yet to unfold. Simultaneously, operations are taking place in all the urban areas to unearth the sleeping cells and wipe them out.
Too late, too late.
Tehreek-e-Taliban.
Too late, Brigadier Hussain. Too late. Your moment of truth has come too late. Your moment of truth.
Better late than never.
Sir, your moment of truth has come too late. You should have seen through the American designs earlier. The pretext of going to war in Iraq was the hunt for weapons of mass destruction. Were there any weapons of mass destruction found? No. And today, what we see today is... No, sir. Why didn't you see through the American designs? Why didn't you see through the... Why did you become pawns in the American game? Why did you become pawns in the American game? General Bakshi wants to come in. General Bakshi.
You know, I haven't finished. I wish to point out to the Brigadier that they rented out their territory so enthusiastically for the crusade against the Soviet Union, and subsequently they welcomed the Taliban. You know, where is Mullah Omar? He is in Quetta. Where is Haqqani in the Northwest Frontier Province? Where is, in the FATA? Where is your Hekmatyar? He is in the Northwest Frontier Province. The entire Taliban military grouping has been sheltered by Pakistan. So, you know, this very self-congratulatory note that the Afghan army is going to be destroyed. I'm sorry, you have a major role to play in the destabilization on the region. But, you know, Arnab, apropos the American intervention, I just wish to point out one thing. You know, Afghanistan was the biggest blowback on intelligence operations. The Americans believed that the Mujahideen would only direct their energies against the former Soviet Union. I think they came back to haunt them in 9/11. The same thing is being repeated time and again. Now the unfortunate problem now for the rest of the world is, you know, the Americans have cut off their dependency on Middle Eastern oil. They are taking no more oil from Saudi Arabia. So they don't care for the people. So their stake in this region is very low. Their stake in the region has gone even lower than it was before. And the fact of the matter is that they
I need our guest from Washington back into the debate, please. General, let's hear it.
Let's
hear it from our guests in Washington. I'm coming to you, Syed Tariq Pirzada, coming to you, Maroof, and coming to you, KC Singh. But you know, this is a fairly straightforward argument here. Ray Locker and Raymond Vickery. The pretext of going to war in Iraq was the hunt for weapons of mass destruction. There were no weapons of mass destruction found, and what we see today is a result of your country having occupied Iraq on a false pretext, on a thoroughly false pretext, and now at a time when forces inimical to the people of Iraq and the rest of the world are occupying territory in the country, you effectively turn around and say Iraqis must defend themselves, and you say that, oh, we are going to help you because we'll send some military advisors and drones to help the Iraqi army retain ground. I ask you today, so is there any moral strength, Mr. Vickery, to that argument? Are you yourself convinced of that argument?
Well, there's no moral strength to that argument. I think it's absolutely absurd to say that the United States is responsible for the problem of Islamic militancy around the world.
Well,
Islamic militancy is around everywhere, not just in Iraq, but you've pointed out all the places. It's in India, it's in Pakistan, it's in Somalia, it's throughout the Middle East. We didn't create that problem. That problem is one that has arisen from Islamic militancy. And India, the United States, moderate Muslims, whether they be in Pakistan, the people of Israel have all a common interest in going forward and doing that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vickery.
The United States to step in and solve the problems of the world.
No, Mr. Vickery, may I ask you today, you remember what Peter Thompson, who was the Department of State Special Envoy and Ambassador to Afghanistan in 89 to 91, he spoke to your TV channels and he was asked, did the CIA build the capacity of Haqqani? He said, yes, the CIA, built the capacity of Haqqani. Who is responsible for Islamic terrorism? Did your country have no equation with the Al-Qaeda before the Al-Qaeda went out of hand? Did you not build the Mujahideen before the Mujahideen groups in Afghanistan went out of hand? Did you not do business with Haqqani before they went out of hand? And even today, why do you refuse to intervene with the ISIS? Why do you not investigate what links your Saudi friends have with the ISIS? Why is Saudi Arabia silent? Why do your allies not speak? Sir, take a principle. If you want to solve the world's problems, Mr. Vickery, you must remain engaged. You can't have a short-term solution. You go in and come out. You must remain engaged.
Well, we don't want to solve the world's problems. the world is going to have to solve some of its
then why did you get into Iraq in the first place, saying we are going to restore democracy to the people of Iraq? Did the people of Iraq invite you to do that? They did not. You chose to come in.
Well,
and you also said...
I'm not one who's defending the Iraqi invasion.
But the Americans did, Sir. George Bush...
This administration
Sir, George Bush said that we will...
what do you do going forward rather than simply looking backwards and trying to point fingers at somebody else?
Sir, George Bush said, we will defend Iraq's resources. We the patrimony of the people of Iraq, which should only be used for their benefit. Today, the country is being run over and you're flying off. Let's get others into the debate. Let's get Maroof Raza back to the debate. Maroof, do you accept the American position?
Not at all. Let me just put it in chronological order. The American distinguished guest would continue to argue that A, they never created the Al-Qaeda and various groups like that. B, they have no responsibility now for the mess that exists. But please look back in time. The entire initiative against American presence in all the Islamic lands led to the creation of the Al-Qaeda, which then got energized, which got supporters, and which went for the Americans, culminating in 9/11, and which then led to the American involvement under various dubious arguments in Iraq and Afghanistan, Both were the wrong countries to intervene in. They went into Iraq because their Arab flunkies and allies told them go and destroy a stable Iraqi regime which is a threat to the monarchies in the Arab world. Now let me tell you the state of play in Iraq. If America says it can do nothing, I don't buy that argument. Just by their claiming that they're not going to do nothing is emboldening and strengthening the resolve of the ISIS, which is now going for the jugular vein in Baghdad. The Americans can provide a certain amount of feet on the ground by providing leadership to the Iraqi army, which their flunky Maliki, who was put by them in Baghdad, has purged the professional Iraqi army of proper leadership by creating a sectarian divide. So today the Iraqi army, though well equipped, is ill-led and therefore is unable to fight the jihadis who are much smaller in number. The second thing is, it is many Arab allies of America that have funded the ISIS in Syria, including the European Union. Today it is with that money, that funding, that encouragement, they're going for a run in Iraq. What is the implication for the world? The implication is that once they establish a stronghold and a state in Iraq, they're going to first destabilize the Arab world, which will impact on oil prices for us and not for America, which is floating on shale gas. And the second thing is, they're going to use that as a base to attack America and its allies across the world. If America doesn't intervene now, they're saving themselves a few lives. But in the long term, it's going to be another catastrophe, which in a sense is their own creation. Please understand, if the Americans don't understand that, it is a joke, because you have the largest number of think tanks in Washington, and you're still not able to think.
The ISIS is simply a creation of American nonchalance. They have looked the other way. I have innumerable data out here about the warnings the Americans received. I mean,
because America is looking the other way. Because America is looking the other way, the ISI knows they're not going to get a kick in the butt. And there is nobody else. The Arabs can't ever get their act
question
together. Tonight. They have been paying the Americans for generations.
We take a 1 minute
by buying
break.
American weapon systems. That America will provide stability to the Arab world. Today, America has taken their money, but it's not providing them stability.
And by the way, today, Mr. Vickery and Ray Locker, you know, this is not enough. The Americans cannot today project Islam to be a religion of violence and get away with it. It's not. You can't say Islam is some kind of religion of violence. The problem is Islamic terrorism. The pertinent question to ask is, what have you done to stem the growth of this terror in Iraq, and why are you washing your hands away following your withdrawal? You realize the gigantic mess that you have left the world in. I'm taking a 1 minute break. I can see Ray, you want to come to the debate. 1 minute break. I'm going away only for 60 seconds. Back on the debate. KC Singh, don't go away.